Everybody loves trades until it's their turn to make one. Because trades aren't really about players. They're about decisions, timing, belief. Right now in the NBA, in fantasy leagues, and in real life, the same question is being asked everywhere. Do I stay the course or do I make a move? The trade rumors are heating up. Group chats are quieter, offers are being typed, then deleted, and it's not an accident. The calendar just flipped. The standings are starting to separate, and hope is still alive, which makes every decision heavier. Today we're going to talk about trades the right way. Not just who might move in the NBA, not just who's being shopped in fantasy, but why trade talk feels louder right now, how league type changes everything, and why the new year isn't about blowing things up. It's about knowing which pieces actually deserve to be moved. I'm Vincent Cooper. This is Round Ball Rants. Let's get into it. Alright, let's start with our fantasy league check-in for week 10. Because this week told us a lot about where the league is heading. The best team in week 10 was Team BClem 23, dropping 346 points. That was the highest score of the week, and it wasn't even close. On the other end, the roughest week belonged to Team Pebron, finishing with 148 points, the lowest output of the week. The most dominant performance came from Buckets, Boards, and Dick, winning 292 to 169 over Team Lamb 978. 9 top picks, 0 worst picks, 292 out of 297 possible points. That's as clean as it gets. In another key matchup, Team UJs took down Twins 240 to 190. That's a statement win between two teams that both entered the week at 7-2. Team Curry 30 Money stayed hot, beating Jay Has to Picks 285 to 215. And the tightest battle of the week went to Team 7, edging Team 3 233 to 219, which earns Team 3 the highest points and a loss award. The upset of the week, Team Loose Moose 7763 knocking off Team Pebron 205 to 108. And the blowout of the week, Team BClem 23 over Team 9, 346 to 194. Best team of the week, Team BClem 23, 346 points. Worst team, Team Pebron 148. The most efficient manager went to Vincentius, 292 of 297 possible points, 98.3% efficiency. And the least efficient manager was Team Pebron, 148 of 315, 47%. Highest points in a loss went to Team 3 at 219, and the lowest points in a win went to Team Loose Moose 7763 with 205. The players that swung matchups in Week 10 were Kawhi Leonard with 89 points, Nikola Jokic with 74, Jamie Jaquez Jr. with 48, Devin Booker with 47, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander with 43. And here's a look at how the league stacks up right now. In first is Buckets, Boards, and Dick at 8-2. Team Pebron sits in second at 7-3. In third is Team UJs at 7-3. In fourth is Team Curry 30 Money at 7-3. In fifth is Team BClem 23 at 7-3. In sixth is Twins at 7-3. Seventh is Team 7 at 5-5. Jay Has the Picks sits in 8th at 4-6. In Team 9 is Team Loose Moose 7763 at 4-6. In 10th is Team 3 at 2-8. In 11th is Team 9 at 1-9. And in 12th is Team Lamb 978 at 1-9. The top half is crowded. The bottom half is running out of time. Alright, that's your fantasy league check-in for week 10. When we come back, we're shifting gears and getting into trade rumors. NBA reality meets fantasy heat. You know how it feels when trade talk starts circling in your fantasy league? There's a shift in the chat. People ask soft questions before actually sending offers. Lineups get stale, text tones get careful, and suddenly everyone's eyeing someone else's guys. Well, guess what? The NBA trade market is doing just the same thing right now. Actual real-world buzz is heating up ahead of the league's official February 5th deadline, and it's giving us a living metaphor for what's happening in your league's trade conversations. In recent news, Knicks are open to moving Yabusele. New York hasn't ruled out on moving forward Guerschon Yabusele before the deadline, according to league sources. That doesn't mean he will be traded, but if the exact kind of rumor seed that gets GMs thinking, pacing, and messaging other teams. For the fantasy translation, that player that you think is locked in suddenly feels tradable, and now teams are probing you about him. And then you also have the Giannis rumors that never fully die in Milwaukee. The Bucks have not been actively shopping Giannis, and won't unless the superstar himself forces a request. But talk is still simmering. Front offices are internally debating whether moves are needed to stay competitive. The fantasy translation for that, just because a guy is untouchable doesn't stop the whispers. The option to trade makes managers ask questions that matter, and sometimes that's enough to start a chain reaction. Golden State's been quiet on major moves, but Jonathan Kuminga has been connected to trade chatter, and big franchises reportedly have eyes on how they may shake up their rosters to acquire the big man. In the fantasy translation, when a player's role or minutes start feeling uncertain, that's when smart GMs start raising their hand first, sometimes before the rational brain kicks in. And the Bucks eye Zach LaVine, while the Hawks are exploring Trae Young talks. Milwaukee has done due diligence on guys like Zach LaVine, while Atlanta is reportedly more open than ever to parting with Trae Young, depending on how a deal could shake out. The fantasy translation, the marquee names generate talk, and even if they don't move, the chatter itself changes how everyone else values assets. Offers get bolder, deadlines feel closer. And what does this mean for your trade environment? Well, there's a common pattern here in the NBA that applies so well to your league. And first, rumors start quietly. Nobody is bold enough to drop a full offer yet. Just like in fantasy, people ask about availability, they probe, they feel it out. Second, multiple teams get included in conversations. One team checks on a player, another jumps in, suddenly there's interest around an asset that used to be ignored. And third, the deadline makes everything louder. You don't need a completed deal to change the market, you just need the possibility of one. This is where your group is right now too. League chat might seem calm, but trust me, everyone's listening harder than they let on. And the fantasy lesson from real NBA trade smoke? In the NBA, some stars are untouchable, but talk still happens. Other players become leverage pieces, not destination guys. Injuries, standings, and momentum shift urgency. In your league, nobody wants to give up a top scorer, but everybody wonders if a depth boost could win them the week. People hate losing assets more than they love gaining value, and right now, we're at that pre-offer, high speculation zone where psychology matters more than points. This is the same zone that the NBA front offices are living in right now, and it's what makes fantasy trade season just as fascinating as the real thing. All right, that's the trade news. That's the smoke, the whispers, the game energy we see every February in the NBA and every winter in fantasy leagues. But before anyone actually sends an offer, there's one thing that matters more than the names being talked about. What kind of league are you in? Because a trade that makes perfect sense in one format can completely wreck you in another. So when we come back, let's revisit and talk about how conversations should look in daily leagues, redraft leagues, and dynasty leagues, and why treating them the same is where most people get burned. Before we close things out, quick word from our friends at Dubby. We've spent this whole episode talking about trades, about knowing what's worth moving and what isn't. And here's one trade that you should never make. Don't trade your energy for anything less than clean. Dubby is zero sugar energy formula designed for focus, not crashes. No filters, no junk, no midday drop off that leaves you worse than where you started. Whether you're grinding through the work, late night edits, fantasy lineup decisions, or just trying to show up consistently, your energy matters. If you've been at a crossroads about trying Dubby, this is your sign. Head to dubby.gg and use code Round Ball Rants to get started. Now, let's finish this the right way. Trades aren't just something that we talk about in fantasy or the NBA. They're the language of the new year. Every January, we start taking inventory of rosters, of routines, of habits, of expectations. What still fits, what doesn't, what we're holding on to just because it's familiar. And not every season calls for a move. Sometimes the right decision is keeping things the same. Sometimes it's sitting still long enough to catch your breath. Sometimes it's admitting that you're not ready yet and giving yourself permission to say that out loud. There's a lot of pressure this time of year to flip everything overnight, to make big dramatic changes, to set goals that sound inspiring but don't have a runway. Real trades, the ones that work, they're not made that way. They're intentional. They're realistic. They're built on understanding of where you actually are. I'll give you an example, just for context. I have a long-term goal of working with the Cleveland Rockers. That's the vision. And I don't hide from it. But my goal this year isn't getting hired. It's being noticed. Building a body of work that speaks for itself. Showing up consistently. Covering the league the right way. Creating something that exists before I'm ever asked to be a part of the room. That's a trade. Trading urgency for patience. Trading fantasy for foundation. Keeping the big dream intact by breaking it into steps that I can actually take. And that mindset applies everywhere. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to pause. It's okay to hold steady for a moment. Just be honest about whether you're resting or avoiding the next move. I'm Vincent Cooper. This was Round Ball Rants. Thank you for being here. And remember, it's not just basketball. It's therapy with a bounce.